Hi, everybody. My name is Mara Carroll. I'm the Development Officer here at Jeff Foundation. Thank you all for joining our community webinar series. We are excited to have FibroGen with us today talking about their lantis studies. We are going to wait just another minute while we have quite a few people logging on and joining us today. So we'll be back in just a second and we'll get started. Hi, everyone, again. This is Mara Carroll. I'm the Development Officer here at Jeff Foundation. Thank you all so much for joining Jeff Foundation's Community Webinar Series. We are excited to have FibroGen with us today talking about their lantis studies in Duchenne muscular dystrophy. But before we get started, just a few reminders. This webinar will be recorded. So if you have to log off at any time or wish to watch it later or share with anyone else, it will be recorded and uploaded later today for you to watch at your convenience. Also, the presentation today is about 30 to 45 minutes, but we will have plenty of time afterwards for questions. So if you have questions at all during the presentation, feel free to type them into the questions box and we'll get to them after the presentation. So with that being said, we are excited again to have FibroGen with us today, and Bassem Elman-Kabadi. He's the clinical development lead at FibroGen and the executive medical director. So we're excited to have you here today, and Bassem, take it away.
Thank you. We are, on behalf of FibroGen, actually, we are delighted to be invited by Jeff Foundation to present our DMD lantis program. Let me show my screen here. Again, we are delighted to be invited to present this lantis program for DMD at Jeff Foundation. We are obligated actually to develop outstanding medicine for patients who have many unmet need indications, including pancreatic cancer, IPF, and Duchenne muscular dystrophy. FibroGen is a mid-sized biotech. We are located in San Francisco. It has two platforms. One is anemia platform, and the second platform is fibrosis oncology platform. Since I joined FibroGen, I'm only involved in this fibrosis oncology platform. I'm a board certified surgeon by training. I did my training back at SUNY Downstate internship, then followed by general surgery training at Brooklyn Hospital. Practiced as a surgeon mainly for colorectal cancer at UCLA, University of California in Los Angeles, mainly for KRAS oncology colorectal cancer. Then joined the Amgen Oncology, led two programs for approval, Parsabiv and Imlygic in Amgen, and then joined FibroGen almost 3.5 years to lead one of these DMD program here. Without further ado, I need to close this. So today I'm going to talk about lantis. Lantis trial study 093, its designs and then endpoints, inclusion exclusion criteria, and mainly for non-ambulatory patients. And then lantis 2, it's study 094. I'm going to talk about the design, endpoint, inclusion exclusion criteria, and also it's meant for ambulatory DMD patients. And then I'm going to conclude my presentation, and then I'll open the floor for any questions you may have. So lantis for non-ambulatory patient study 093, it's a phase 3 randomized double-blind trial for pamrevlumab or placebo in combination with systemic corticosteroids. Again, only for non-ambulatory Duchenne muscular dystrophy patients who are 12 and older. The dose of pamrevlumab is 35 mg per kilogram IV, given bi-weekly. And we expected the study to last for 52 weeks, which is almost 27 infusion total. Of course, the standard of care of systemic prednisone or deflazacort is present in both arms, like the even was blinded. So we're not preventing any standard of care from our patients. It's a global randomized trial, double-blinded, of pamrevlumab in combination with systemic steroids. 12 years of an older Duchenne muscular dystrophy patient. We are planning to enroll 90 patients in this trial. The randomization will be 1-to-1, and then we're going to screen for 4 weeks before we start the treatment for 52 weeks, and then followed by safety follow-up period of additional 6 weeks for safety follow-up, plus minus, of course, 3 days. Pamrevlumab arm A and arm B. So this is a schema here for the design of the trial. Pamrevlumab and arm A will be given in 35 mg per kilogram IV biweekly, plus deflazacort systemic steroid or equivalent of any prednisone orally. Arm B will be matching placebo, intravenous infusion biweekly plus systemic steroids. Subject who completed the 52 weeks in either arm may be eligible to roll over into a study offering an open label extension of pamrevlumab plus systemic steroids. Again, patients who decide to roll over into the open label extension, any approved therapy for Duchenne muscular dystrophy will be given for them in addition to pamrevlumab. Just the randomization period only for 1 year. Patient may end up in a placebo arm. However, after 1 year of completion of that randomization portion, patient may roll over into the OLE. They can get pamrevlumab in addition to any approved therapy, Exonidis, Vyondys, Amondys, Viltepso, anything of this approved therapy now will be given in the open label extension. So our primary endpoint for Lantis trial will be the total score of performance of the upper limb, that change from baseline to week 52. And then we divided the secondary endpoint into 3 categories. Actually, the pulmonary function test will be measured by a change in percent predicted forced vital capacity from baseline to week 52, and then a change in percent predicted peak expiratory flow from baseline to week 52. Of course, pulmonary function test is assessed by spirometry. And then the second part of the secondary endpoints is a performance assessment, will be the change in the grip strength measured by handheld myometry from baseline to week 52. And then we have cardiac assessment as well. We were going to measure the ejection fraction from baseline to week 52 assessed by cardiac MRI. Safety assessment, as usual, we're going to look at all the treatment emergent adverse events, serious adverse event, clinical significant, any abnormal lab or discontinuation of treatment due to any treatment-related adverse event. And also we were going to have a look also at the hospitalization, percentage of hospitalization due to serious adverse event with pulmonary or cardiac cause. As you know, the cardiac and pulmonary causes are the main causes of morbidity and mortality in this patient population. Therefore, we paid close attention here to make sure that we're not missing anything and to evaluate whether pamrevlumab has any significant impact on these 2 causes of morbidity and mortality. Expiratory endpoint, we're going to assess that by Duchenne video assessment tool. The caregiver and the parents will take some videos for their kids while they are resting at home to measure technically the quality of their lives, whether it's improving or not at their home. And then we're going to also look at the forced expiratory volume at 1 second, the change from baseline to week 52 as well. And also we have analysis in relation to dilated cardiomyopathy and the genotype LTBB4. And actually, this is kudos to the FDA. Actually, they are the one. Once I met with them back then before COVID, the reviewer actually during the meeting, she mentioned that to us in FibroGen whether to have a look at the dilated cardiomyopathy in relation to that genotype. We didn't know. I didn't know back then that correlation exists. However, we went back and we did our due diligence and we decided to add it as an expiratory endpoint. Again, that point has been added by FDA comment, which is actually absolutely correct and right on the spot. MRI, fibrosis and assessed by MRI, we're going to have a look at the biceps brachii muscle fibrosis. the change from baseline to week 52, cardiac fibrosis as well from baseline to week 52 by late gadolinium enhancement, and then a myocardial circumferential strain. As you know, this myocardial circumferential strain is more accurate than ejection fraction. In clinical practice, usually ejection fraction have parameters may not be that accurate. However, global circumferential strain measure exactly the power of the left ventricle to eject blood, so it's more accurate than ejection fraction per se. And those are exploratory endpoints. Our key inclusion criteria for Lantis 093 non-ambulatory study: male patient, of course, at least 12 years of age and older, Brooke score of less than 5, able to undergo MRI, able to do spirometry. Percent predicted forced vital capacity should be an average between 45% to 85% inclusive. Ejection fraction of 50% or higher by cardiac MRI at screening within 3 months prior to randomization. Subject must be on a stable dose of cardiomyopathy. What I meant by that is that the patient must have an ACE inhibitors or aldosterone receptor blockers to be at least for 1 month prior to screening to be able to be considered for this trial. Why? Because as you know, there is a lot of publication out there for ACE inhibitor to start this Duchenne muscular dystrophy patients as early as possible to prolong their survival. So we had that in our inclusion criteria. The last bullet here is the stable dose of systemic steroids for a minimum of 6 months. No substantial changes in dose for at least 3 months prior to screen. This is just in this slide is just an example of the Duchenne care consideration for the recommendation for the steroids. However, patients should be on a stable dose of steroids throughout the study. Key exclusion criteria for 093 study, Lantis, any history of allergic or anaphylactic reaction should be excluded, of course, from our trial. It's a monoclonal antibodies. Our drug is monoclonal antibodies, and should any allergy or anaphylactic reaction, patient should be excluded. Exposure to any investigational product. So within in the 30 days prior to screening. So if I on this Exonadis, Viltepso, all this patients should be discontinued with this before it's considered for our trial. However, as I mentioned earlier, during the open label extension, any of these drugs, any of the approved therapy can be given in addition to pamrevlumab during the open label extension. NYHA, New York Heart Association class 3 and 4, patients should be excluded, of course, from our trial if they have these classes. Arrhythmia and on antiarrhythmic therapy, continuous ventilation for more than 16 hours, hospitalization due to respiratory failure within 8 weeks of screening should be not enrolled in this trial. Poorly controlled asthma, bronchiectasis, emphysema, recurrent pneumonia may impact our respiratory function as an endpoint. Therefore, those should not be included in our trial. And at the last bullet here is the judgment of our investigators are the key here to consider the patients they are seeing, whether they are eligible to our trial or not. Then I'm going to change gear here to talk about the Lantis 2. Lantis 2 meant for ambulatory patients. It's a global phase 3 randomized double-blinded trial for pamrevlumab or placebo in combination with systemic steroid in ambulatory patients, as I mentioned. Our objective to evaluate the efficacy and safety of pamrevlumab versus placebo in combination with systemic steroid in ambulatory patients. The dose is the same dose like the one for non-ambulatory. It's 35 mg per kilogram IV, 27 infusion, and of course steroids. It's PO medication be given orally. We are targeting patients who are 6 to less than 12 years of age at the time of consenting. We need 70 subjects to complete enrollment in this study, and the table here showing the schema of this study. Arm A, pamrevlumab 35 mg per kilogram by infusion bi-weekly, plus systemic steroids administered orally. And of course, the Arm B will be matching placebo, IV bi-weekly plus systemic steroids or deflazacort. The randomization in this study will be stratified by exon 44 deletion. Subject who completed the 52 weeks in both arms will be eligible to roll over into an open label extension trial. During that open label extension, any approved therapy can be given in addition to pamrevlumab. It's an open setting, no more randomization after 52 weeks. Our primary endpoint will be the change in North Star assessment from baseline to week 52. Bunch of secondary endpoints here are mainly ambulatory function, 4-stair climb velocity from baseline to week 52, 10-meter walk-run test, time to stand, and then loss of ambulation. Loss of ambulation is the important point here, has been highlighted to us by EMA during our discussion with them. EMA is the health authority in Europe. So just to, they informed us that it's important to measure the loss of ambulation in this kids who enrolled in this trial. So we decided to add this as a second endpoint based on the EMA recommendation. Safety assessment will be the same thing: serious adverse event, treatment emergent adverse event, any adverse event led to discontinuation of our treatment or related adverse event. And we're going to also pay attention to the hospitalization due to pulmonary or cardiac causes, as I mentioned earlier. Exploratory endpoint will be the Duchenne video assessment, measure the quality of life of our patients while they are resting at their home. We're going to have a look also at the forced vital capacity and peak expiratory flow as an exploratory endpoint assessed by spirometry. And then the change in lower extremities vastus lateralis muscle fibrosis score from baseline to week 52. No more in this study. There is no cardiac MRI, only muscle MRI. We understood that these patients may have some challenges to go into the MRI machine. So therefore, we decided to focus only on the lower extremities vastus lateralis muscle fibrosis. All right, so in 094 study, Lantis 2, the key inclusion criteria is 6 to less than 12 years of age, ambulatory patient at screening, Brooks score of less than 5, able to rise, of course, from the floor in less than 10 seconds without any aids at screening visit, able to complete 6-minute walk test with a distance of at least 270 meter, but not more than 450 meter on 2 occasions within 3 months prior to randomization, with less than 10% variation between these 2 tests. Able to undergo MRI for lower extremities, mainly for the vastus lateralis muscles, and then average percent predicted forced vital capacity of more than 45%. And the same concept here we have in systemic steroids should be on a stable dose for these patient populations throughout the trial. Our key exclusion criteria for the Lantis 094 study, anaphylactic, it's again, pamrevlumab is a monoclonal antibodies. Any patient who is allergic or have history of anaphylactic reaction to any monoclonal antibodies should be excluded. Exposure to any investigational drug in the last 30 days prior to screening should be excluded as well. In addition to any approved therapy should not be given during the randomization period within 5 half-lives of screening. Again, just important point to highlight here, if the patient decided to roll over into the open label extension, any of these approved therapy, Amondys, Vyondys, and so forth, will be given in the open label extension portion in addition to pamrevlumab. Uncontrolled heart failure, NYHA class 3 and 4 should not be enrolled in the trial. Arrhythmia or antiarrhythmic therapy, require ventilation, continuous ventilation more than 16 hours should not be enrolled in our trial. Hospital is the same thing, hospitalization to respiratory failure within 8 weeks before screening, and uncontrolled asthma or poorly controlled asthma, bronchiectasis, bronchitis, emphysema, and so forth, and recurrent pneumonia should not be included in our trials. Patient, of course, again, it's the investigation and the investigator judgment to consider whether the patient he or she sees is eligible to enroll in our trial Lantis study 094. And then some additional points here for both phase 3 trials in Lantis. The pulmonary function test in a study 093 will be or has been evaluated by central reader. The MRI for both studies has been evaluated by a central reader as well. And the MRI charter has been formed based on the FDA guidance to industry in clinical trial imaging endpoint process standard. Data monitor committee, the DMC, has been utilized and composed of 3 external clinicians. The DMC responsibility is will make sure that the safety of our trial is applied here, in addition to the routine pharmacovigilance, FibroGen internal pharmacovigilance activity. Pharmacovigilance means safety. So in addition to that, we have a DMC committee to look at all the safety data across the trials. The first 3 infusions, this is very something to consider for the families and the patients. The first 3 doses of the investigational product will be infused at the healthcare facility or the site. However, subsequent infusion can be given at their patient's home. We can approve on a case-by-case basis based on the geographic areas whether this service is applicable for our patients or not. And I think this is the slides that showing that in Clinicaltrialgov, we have the 2 trials listed there in addition to our phase 2 trials. That I presented the data from phase 2 trial at PPMD, last medical conference at PPMD in June. And then also we are working as we speak to update our Clinicaltrial.gov to add these results in for the phase 2 trial at the Clinicaltrial.gov. FibroGen will support any travel expenses and accommodation for our patients while they are going to the sites, while they are enrolled in the Lantis studies. So that travel expenses and accommodation will be paid. And then in conclusion, although several potential gene therapies are being investigated, DMD is currently mainly managed through systemic therapy. And there is no, unfortunately, there is no cure for this disease so far. Pamrevlumab has potential to bring additional benefits for our DMD patients. Pamrevlumab mechanism of action may mitigate fibrosis for DMD patients. Pamrevlumab can potentially be used in a broad range of patients regardless of specific mutation. So any patients with regardless of their genetic mutations can be enrolled, if eligible, of course, in our trials. Phase 3 trials, Lantis trials, evaluating the efficacy and safety of pamrevlumab for DMD are ongoing and enrolling very well. We're almost more than 55% enrolled in both trials. Hopefully, we're going to continue enrolling and succeed at the end of this phase 3 trials. And this is additional information here. This is my name and my email. In addition, my team here, lantis@fibrogen.com. Feel free to email them if you have any question with regards to the Lantis trial. The team can respond to you, suggesting any nearby sites if you are to go and see and that investigators to be evaluated for the Lantis trial. And that concludes my presentation. Maura, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Bassem. Thank you so much. That was a great presentation, and we do have lots of questions coming in for you, so let's get started there. First question, in your phase 2, what were the side effects, and did you see any reversal of fibrosis?
Well, that's a great question. Remember, phase 2 trial, the one that we have here in FibroGen, we conducted the phase 2. It's an open label trial. We don't have a comparator arm. So we used published data and synergy data to compare our results against publications. And we saw some potential promising effect in terms of reversing fibrosis and other endpoints in terms of pulmonary function test and heart parameters. However, again, this is a tiny little study, 21 patients only, and we really need to be careful once we discuss these results because we don't have a comparator arm. Hopefully, phase 3, we're going to prove the concept of pamrevlumab in Duchenne muscular dystrophy.
Thank you. Next question, how old is too old to screen for the non-ambulatory trial?
we don't have a gap upper age, so 12 or older can be screened for the non-ambulatory phase 3 trials.
Great. Next question or comment. I think this is from a mom whose son is on the drug. My son has been stable for 4 years on this drug. Thank you so much. Is that what you have been seeing in other participants?
Yeah, honestly, I'm blinded for the phase 3 as we speak. However, for the phase 2 trial, the results were out, and I presented the results and with bar plots, and we noticed some potential benefits, or at least promising results in terms of against publication and synergy data. We don't have a randomized study to compare accurately. However, the publication that we used and the synergy data that we used showed some potential effect of pembrolizumab. And so far we have an open label extension trial from the phase 2 study, and the patients are doing so far well.
What is considered ambulatory versus non-ambulatory according to these trials? My son uses a chair for long distances, but can still walk around shorter distances. So I don't know what he is considered.
Well, non-ambulatory patient should be bound to wheelchair. So if your son is still moving around, is still not non-ambulatory fully. He is in the transition period to be non-ambulatory. It's unfortunate. However, that's the guidelines that we're following. We have to have that difference. Patients on non-ambulatory study should not be ambulatory, should be bounded to wheelchair. However, I suggest to the mother to just go talk to any of our investigators to see if her son is make it for the non-ambulatory trial.
Great. Will you be opening a site closer to Buffalo, New York, or let us do more home infusion?
I can't remember, of course, all the sites that I have, but I have key opinion leaders sites here in US across the nation, and also a bunch of them in EU as well. So most likely we're going to have one nearby Buffalo. I don't know, I can't remember. However, we do have a lot of sites in this region in New York area. Pennsylvania, I believe we have one. Dr. Branson, I guess, nearby. And Dr. Wong in Chicago. So there's a lot of them. I suggest that to reach out to us, and the team here can forward you to one of nearest sites to your home. And again, remember, we pay for the expenses. If your son need to travel and accommodate, we pay for it.
Great. Before the next question, I was wondering if you could go back a slide just so we can let it sit on where your email and how to contact you. I think you had, yeah, perfect. Let's see. Will FibroGen consider patients taking Translarna? My son has been on a stable dose for many years.
No, it's GCP guidance, and we cannot violate it. The GCP good clinical practice patients on clinical trials should not be enrolled in another clinical trials. It will be complicated. We cannot.
Next question, similar. I live in Louisiana, but I don't think there are any sites near me. Sounds like she's wanting to get that there is a clinic near her, but she doesn't believe they are having this trial.
It's actually, I suggest to the mother actually to just email lantis@fibrogen.com, and our team here can respond to her with the nearest sites to her place. I believe we do have one in Texas, Dr. Diana Castro, and that's nearby, I would assume. But in general, we can work with the team here. She can work with the team to refer her to one of the nearest sites to her home.
Next question, how many kids have been in this trial for 4 years or more? What is their status from baseline to their heart, lung, and muscle?
Again, I can answer that. However, I just encourage the audience here to refer to my presentation at PPMD. We did present the entire full data for the phase 2 trial, from the phase 2 trials at PPMD in June. So in a nutshell, we have 15 patients enrolled as we speak in the open label extension, which is the phase 2 trial, out from 21 patients. So the trial started at 21 patients total, and then 6 patients, some of them decided not to continue because of the infusion biweekly and so forth. So the 15 patients who are currently on the phase 2 trials are doing well, to my knowledge. I didn't hear anything from any of our investigators here. And we hope that once we have the results from phase 3, the proof of concept of pamrevlumab in Duchenne muscular dystrophy will be good. So we till now I can't make a solid statement that we are efficacious in that disease. However, we have promising data from phase 2 trial.
Great. The next question, I'm sure you can't quite answer this, but what is the time frame for this drug to be marketed? My son is not eligible for the trial because he is too young.
So that's a great question, actually. So we are targeting to complete enrollment by next year, second quarter of next year, and then at least for the non-ambulatory trial, and then the ambulatory trial just started in April, so it will be later on time. So I would say by 2023, mid 2023, we should be all right to submit our file to the FDA and EMA. And based on the review and decision, we have a fast track review, which give us an option to get approved quickly. We were designated fast track review by FDA. And as you know, we have orphan designation as well from EMA in Europe and also here in US. So we anticipate that to come in around 2023.
The next question, we have a few people joining us today that are international. So question here is, are you enrolling international patients? If so, where are the sites?
We do have international sites. We have in UK, we have in Netherlands, we have in France, Spain, Israel, and we have a bunch of them. Yeah, we do have all the sites. Most of the sites are active and can be enrolled patients in Europe as well. And that's the status of our trial so far. So I don't know where the patient is located. However, we have a bunch of them in Europe, a lot actually.
Great. Okay, I don't see any other questions. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to drop them into the question box. But as it has here on this slide deck, if you do have any questions, you can reach out to lantos@fibrogen.com. You can reach out to Jeff Foundation and we'll get them the questions as well. This has been a great presentation. Thank you so much, Bassem. Again, for everyone that's joining us, if you have any questions, please reach out. And also, I would just like to mention we do a survey after our webinar. So if you do get a chance, it'll pop up right after the webinar ends. But if you do get a chance to fill that out for us, it really helps us as we develop our program and host further webinars. So without any further questions, thank you so much, FibroGen team, and Bassem for this great presentation. And we look forward to hearing again from you soon.
Thank you, Jet Foundation, for inviting FibroGen. We're delighted to be a part with you guys here to help these Duchenne patients to get the better cure, and hopefully we'll succeed soon. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. Have a good afternoon. See you next time. Bye-bye.